Good morning, children. I hope all of you are doing well. In the last class, we saw about constitutional design. We have constitutional design in India. We tried to understand the meaning of constitution. Let us recapitulate what was taught in the last class. What is constitution? Why a country needs a constitution? What went into the making of the constitution? How the Constituent Assembly was formed. These were certain aspects which we have discussed in our earlier module. Now once again let us understand the meaning of constitution. What is it? It is a set of written rules which are accepted by the people living together in a country. India's constitution is a written constitution. It's the lengthiest constitution. We got to know so much about our constitution. Why we need a constitution? How the people are to be ruled. When the government is elected to power, what can they do? What they should not do? So these are certain rules which are kept in mind when the rules are framed for the constitution. So what are the rules? It should lay out how rulers are to be elected in future. These rules, they should determine what the elected government can do or cannot do. What are the limits? Okay. Then these rules, they should also decide the rights of the citizens. For example, we have the fundamental rights which are given by the Constitution. So these are all certain aspects which are when the Constitution is being framed. Who are all the people who will involved? India's Constitution, as I told, it's a written Constitution, lengthiest Constitution. We have Constitution makers. They referred the Constitution of other countries. They read. There was a lot of deliberation. There was consensus among the Constitution makers as to how our Constitution is going to be. We learned about the making of our Constitution. Making of Constitution was not an easy process. It was a difficult process because we had to merge the princely states, and then we saw how communal rights took place when partition took place. So all these aspects we have dealt in our earlier class. Now we also learned about the part of the Constitution, and then how the Constituent Assembly was constituted. Who was the chairman of the drafting committee? The chairman of the drafting committee was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So people from different walks of life, they were elected to this legislative legislative assemblies. We didn't want a weak legislature. Our legislature was very weak under the British rule. So we wanted a strong legislature. So people from different walks of life, they sat for almost 3 years, 114 days. The clauses in the Constitution were discussed, they were debated, they were recorded. So all these things we have seen in the last class. For a period of 3 years they deliberated, and every document presented and every word spoken in the Constitution, in the Constituent Assembly, they have been recorded and preserved. Now, today what our discussion is going to revolve around the guiding values of our Constitution. What was the vision of the great leaders? So how do we understand the philosophy of our Constitution? So to start with, to understand the Constitution to understand the philosophy of Constitution, we can understand it by reading the views of some of our major leaders. Here the views of Gandhiji, Ambedkar, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Jawaharlal Nehru is given over here. So by what are their views? Are these views incorporated in the Constitution? What was their vision? How they wanted India to be? Because we had been struggling to get our independence. So what type of struggle, what type of India we wanted, the people of India wanted, whether their vision has been incorporated. The second aspect is, it is equally important to read what the Constitution says about its own philosophy. Through preamble, we'll understand. Preamble is an introductory statement to the Constitution, what our ideals are. Then, what are the dreams and promises, let us see. See, now when we saw, these are the people from different walks of life who have participated in the making of the Constitution. One prominent figure is missing. Who is that? It is Mahatma Gandhi. Now, here, the Mahatma Gandhi, he was not a member of the Constituent Assembly. Now, years ago, but he had a vision. What was his vision? Years ago, he wrote in the magazine what was the magazine name? It was called as Young India. The year 1931, he had spelled out what the constitution wanted to do. So what are his views? Let us see. See, he wanted a constitution which would release India from bondage and patronage. We shall work for an India in which the poorest of the poor also should feel that they have an effective voice in the say of the functioning of the government. An India in which there shall be no distinction between the higher class and the lower class. We have seen the problem of untouchability which has been there for umpteen number of years. We wanted to do away with untouchability, had been fighting for their cause. So there can be no room in such an India for the curse of untouchability or the curse of intoxicating drinks and drugs. Women shall enjoy the same rights as men. We can say our first fundamental right to equality, where no person can be discriminated on the basis of color, caste, creed, religion, sex, etc. Isn't it so? So I shall be satisfied with nothing else. So the views of these major leaders are also incorporated in the constitution. This dream of an India that has eliminated inequality was also shared by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now, in the making of the constitution, though these Ambedkar and Gandhiji had certain differences, ideological differences, still they worked together to see that the problem of untouchability isn't there. People are treated equally in the eyes of law. In his concluding speech to the Constituent Assembly, he clearly stated his anxiety. What did he say? On the 26th January 1950, we are going to enter a life of contradictions. In politics, we shall have equality. In our preamble, it states we have political, social and economic equality. See, and in social and economic life, we will have inequality. In politics, we will be recognizing the principle of one man, one vote, and one vote, one value. Now, in our social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one value. Though we have strived, see, the foundation of democracy is based on political equality. We will be striving hard for economic and social equality. Inequalities exist, but we will have to work to remove it. Now, how long shall we continue this life of contradiction? How shall we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? If we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. So he wanted a society where all these inequalities will not exist. Now let us see Jawaharlal Nehru's speech in the Destiny on his famous speech to the Constituent Assembly at the stroke of midnight on August 1947. What was his vision for India? Okay, now in this pledge, he says in this pledge, he wanted to convey that for a long time, Jawaharlal Nehru wanted to convey that for a long time we had taken a pledge to assure India and its people of freedom and independence. For long years we have been under the British rule. So now we wanted to come out of that. Okay, the time has come to redeem that pledge. Even if you are not able to completely fulfill the pledge, it needs to be done substantially. We should work hard, strive hard. Now, he wanted the makers of the Constitution to take the pledge of dedicating to the service of India and her people and to the larger cause of humanity. You can see the vision of Mahatma Gandhi also. He says, the ambition of the greatest man of our generation has been to wipe out every tear from every eye. We should not see any sort of people, having tears in their eyes. No, that may be beyond us, but as long as there are tears and suffering, we want this suffering to end. We have endured suffering for a long time, so this suffering should come to an end. So, as long as this suffering is there, we need to strive hard to remove this suffering. So, we cannot say that once a constitution is framed, our work is done with. We have to continuously keep on working on it, so that India becomes a better place for the people to live. Now, let us move on to the philosophy of the Constitution. These are the guiding values of our Constitution. What are the visions of great leaders like Gandhiji, Ambedkar and Nehruji's even? So, you can go through this. It is clearly written there. So, please read all these vision what is given by these people. Now, moving on to Preamble. So, what is our Preamble? Preamble is an introductory statement. Okay, in a constitution, it states the reasons and the guiding values of the constitution. What is preamble known as? It is known as the soul of the Indian constitution. Okay, now values that inspired and guided the freedom struggle and were in turn nurtured by it, it formed the foundation of India's democracy. India's democracy was based on what? It was based on the struggles what our freedom fighters fought for. These values are embedded in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. They guide all the articles of the institution of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution was made, great care was taken not to miss out anything. The Constitution begins with a short statement of its basic values. This is called as the preamble to the Constitution. Taking inspiration from American model, most countries in the contemporary world, they have chosen to begin their constitutions with a preamble. We too have a preamble. Now let us see what does our preamble of India says. We the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice. What type of justice? Social, economic and political justice. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. Equality of status and of opportunity. To promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves the Constitution. So some words, key words are very important for us to understand. What are they? They are, first we said, we the people of India. What type of constitution we the people of India wanted? We wanted it to be sovereign. We didn't want it to be, see, no country has a right to interfere into the internal affairs of our country. Internal law, see, what is this? The constitution, people have supreme right to make decisions on internal as well as external matters. No other external power can dictate terms to the government of India. Socialist. Now, wealth which is generated, government should own institutions, especially during when India got its independence. We have seen how government tried to promote large-scale industries. See, the wealth should be equally distributed between the poor and the rich. We don't want differences. We don't want the gap between the rich and poor to widen. Now, secular. Citizens are free to follow any religion. But there is no official religion. India doesn't have a, we have seen during partition how people fought on the religious lines. We didn't want any more further bloodshed. So the Constitution has given us the right to follow any religion, any faith we can follow. Government treats all religious beliefs and practices with equal respect. And then democratic, a form of government where people enjoy equal political rights. We elect our rulers and we hold them accountable for what they are doing. Okay, if you feel that a particular party in power is not satisfying us, so we may not bring them back to power. So the government is to be run according to some basic rules. So these key words you need to understand. What are they? Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. What is republic? The head of the state. The president of a country is an elected person. He is not a hereditary, it is not a hereditary position. Now, justice. Justice, we all know what is justice. Citizens cannot be discriminated on the grounds of caste, religion and gender. Social inequalities need to be reduced. Government should work for the, we have seen the government introducing time and again many welfare policies for the benefit of the disadvantaged groups, of people who belong to the socially backward classes. Many welfare schemes time and again the government introduces. Then liberty. Liberty, there are no unreasonable restrictions on the citizens in what they think. You should have the freedom to express your opinion. There should not be any restrictions on what you think. And then the way they wish to follow their thoughts in action. Next, equality. Equality of status and opportunity. Provide opportunity equally to all. The traditional social inequalities have to be ended. The government should ensure equal opportunity for all. It should not be only for a particular section of people. So, we all are equal in the eyes of law. The rule of law applies to everyone. Now, fraternity. All of us should behave as if we are members of the same family. We all belong to the same country. We all should feel that entire India is our family. No one should treat a fellow citizen as inferior. The feeling of inferiorness should not come into the minds of the people. So here the preamble is given, children. So I want you to go through this preamble word by word. Next. 26th of November. From 2015 onwards, we are celebrating it as the Constitution Day. So this is the philosophy of our Constitution. Next, moving on, we will see what is the institutional design. Okay, how is it? How are we putting that into practice? Now, a constitution is not merely a book of what you say statement of values and philosophy. A constitution is about embodying these values into the institutional arrangements. So we have three main organs: the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. So how are we going to implement these laws? How will they be executed? Okay, much of the document called Constitution is about these arrangements. It is a very long and detailed document, so it needs to be amended quite regularly to keep it updated. So many changes keep happening in the society. So whenever these changes are there, see the constitution is not very rigid. So you can make amendments. You cannot make amendments to the preamble, but you can make amendments. Changes are called as amendment. These changes can be made according to the changing times in the society, and these changes can be incorporated. Those who crafted the Indian Constitution, they felt that it has to be in accordance with the people's aspirations and the changes in the society. So very often we see how in the parliament for women's reservation the number of seats needs to be increased. So like that, often we see laws which are being debated in the parliament and then they are being passed. Okay, now they did not see it as sacred, static and unalterable law. So they made provisions. So provisions are there in the constitution to incorporate changes from time to time. So these changes are called as constitutional amendments. So government has given us the flexibility to bring about changes whenever it is needed, when we need to fulfill the aspirations of the people. The constitution describes the institutional arrangements in a very legal language. So if you read the constitution for the first time, it can be quite difficult to understand. It's not in a simple language. Many legal terms are included in that. Yet the basic institutional design is not difficult to understand. Like any constitution, it lays down a procedure. The procedure for choosing persons to govern the country. It defines how much power to take which decisions. I told you while framing the constitution, what are the rules? One is, these rules should determine what the elected government can do and cannot do. These rules should decide the rights of the citizens. Now, it puts a limit to what the government can do by providing some rights to the citizens that cannot be violated. For example, the fundamental rights. You have a right to constitutional remedies. If your fundamental right is encouraged upon, then you can approach the court of law. This is what our institutional design deals with. Now, to have a recapitulation of what we have learned in this lesson, we have spoken about what is meant by constitution, why we need a constitution. Okay, then what went into the making of the Indian Constitution, what is the path to the Indian Constitution, how the Constituent Assembly was constituted, who are the members, how many days did it take for us to write the Constitution, when it was adopted and when it came to be enforced, then why we accepted the Constitution, and then what are the guiding values of a Constitution, what is the vision of the great leaders like Gandhiji, Ambedkar and Nehruji, then what is the overall philosophy of the Constitution. You also got to know about the preamble and the institutional design. Thank you, children.